I'm going to speak without presentation, without PowerPoint. First, I would say what I'm not going to say. I'm not an academic, and I'm not a person from the industry, and I'm not dealing with cyber. I'm a diplomat, and I'm going to speak about diplomacy for the digital age and digital diplomacy and the elements that we have put together while we try to conceptualize and to build doctrines that will fit this new world that we have to maneuver. And I don't know, I wasn't here from the beginning of the day, but everybody is aware that we are living through a revolution. And it's a technological revolution, and it's a revolution in communication, and it's a revolution because it's impact not only the specific fields of communication, but it impacts all aspects of life. Basically, the essence of the revolution that a new social environment, a new dimension for human interaction was created. And we as diplomats has to think how we operate in this new dimension. So the goals are the same goals of diplomacy and of public diplomacy, but it's about a new environment with new rules. And this environment includes all sorts of human interaction, all the good things in human interaction and all the bad things in human interaction. So the very bad things I leave for the cyber people. I don't deal with intelligence about terrorism, and I don't deal with cyber crime and cyber terrorism. But I do deal with some elements that are quite similar. The development of echo chambers that can lead later on into more radicalization of society. We deal with elements of destabilizing societies, etc., because that's part of what states are doing in this environment. And therefore, we have to deal with that in a defensive manner and in an active manner in order to achieve our goals. And I would say, in general, you are all diplomats. Diplomacy is about influencing. Influencing in order to push forward the interest of your public, your citizens, and of the state. What do we do? What do we do in this field? We take all the elements of diplomacy and we translate them into the new dimension. Think about war for a second. Suddenly people got the possibility to fly. And therefore, in war, you adopted all principles of war into air. And when it happens before, at sea, and undersea. So it's a new dimension, but the principles are the same. The new environment is based on three elements as we see it. One element is content, is information. The second element is human interaction. And the third element is that this interaction and mobilization of information is done by algorithmics. So for us diplomats, when we think about digital diplomacy, the first two elements are pretty easy. We always dealt with content. We always dealt with influence. We had communication strategies. We wanted to make contact with people through information, etc. So we simply have to train our people to speak the different languages of the digital environment and to translate the tools, for example, networking, into that environment. And they will do that. We'll build communities, we'll build networking, we'll produce the right kind of content, Sometimes it will be video, and sometimes it will be text, and sometimes it will be something that we say, and sometimes it will be infographics. We can use, and it will use all kinds of elements of gaming, and will play. But in order to understand this world, we need to penetrate to the mindset of algorithmics, because the movement of the information, unlike in real world, is not made of our skills and personal capabilities. It's dictated by algorithmics and by the creators of this world. And the creators are the big digital companies. Now, I'm coming from a different conference, Combating Anti-Semitism, that I run today. And the first part of the conference dealt with diplomacy for the digital age, of how we legislate, how we regulate, how we create a dialogue between the three different elements that are responsible for this world. And the three elements are simple. We spoke about technology companies that created the world. We speak about states that has the power to regulate and has the responsibility and authority to deal with security and safety of their citizens and societies. And we deal with civil society. By the way, some of the civil society can be bad actors, but civil society is important. They are usually the vast majority of the creators and the owners of the content. And how we create a meaningful dialogue in order to regulate and build a system that will allow us to enjoy with all the positive things that exist in the new dimension that was created, but also how to deal with all the problems. We have to deal with crime in the real world, and we have to deal with crime in the new dimension, how we cooperate on that. And that leads me to the creators of the world. There is a big debate whether internet companies are technology companies or content and media companies. I don't want to go into it, but I would say that the first element is clear. The first element, that they are technology companies, is clear and agreed by all. And therefore, when we deal with those companies, we have to understand that we are dealing basically with the world that they created, with the roads, the different roads that they created. So if we want to deal, for example, with bad content, with radicalizing content, we can use messaging and counter messaging. But we can use technology to slow it down, to put sign, do not park here, no entry into some areas. It's not about freedom of speech, it's about traffic, it's about movement. Now, part of what ministries of foreign affairs and state should do is learn all the tools and play with them. And you've seen that that was done. Just look at what is happening in the United States or in Britain today, and the elements that are being exposed about certain elements playing with what the networking is already offering in order to achieve influence, not positive influence in the view of most British and American. So part of it is knowing ad web and knowing analytics and knowing how to push forward and how to build network and how to to assist your capabilities with bots. And I will say we are using bots here in Israel, but we are using bots only when they support real communities and real entities. We don't deal with avatars, because we want to play within the guidelines of this environment. So one thing is to play with that. And the other way is, if you can cooperate or regulate the companies to do all kinds of things, to monitor or to take action, whether you can create the tools yourself, the algorithmic tools, to slow down the information, bad information, to counter it, to identify that there is a problem and then intervene. Because intervention in the right time and right place is important, and therefore our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I believe that others, are going also into the field of big data. But besides being a nice buzzword, big data, the big data is data that's supposed to help you understand an environment and operate timely. So it's about the key questions that you would like to ask. It's not about the vast information. It's to know what kind of information you are seeking in order to see that something is happening. Let's say fake news. If fake news is starting to run and can destabilize the society, let's think about Israel. If there will be a fake news that Israel is destroying Mount Temple, can you imagine what will happen? So I need to monitor, to identify, and then to create tools of intervening. Intervening in a way that either will slow down, will stop, will take down the bad information, will create counter messaging or opposing track, etc. It's not the natural space for a diplomat to deal with. We are not a company, a technology company, but we know better our own needs, and therefore we can be assisted by approaching companies to help us to solve the problem, or even better, to approach the public. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel is doing hackathons, is working with incubators, with people that will develop all kinds of tools that are important for us. We've been in a conference about combating anti-Semitism. So there are a lot of tools that were developed by the government in order to detect whether where in online there is hate speech and anti-Semitism and the flow of the information. But let's say that you want to intervene. We did a hackathon. We got with marvelous ideas of people that said, we will send information to people that react to anti-Semitic content. We'll send them some kind of warning. We will develop a bot that will identify that and will say, you are now joining an anti-Semitic or offensive discourse on the net. So all kinds of these tools that are coming from the public can be translated by companies, by governments, by organizations. And the best thing to do that is together. Don't think that you have as diplomats all solutions. Don't think as diplomats that the companies has all the solutions. Sometimes you have conflicting interests, but together and through dialogue you can do and regulation. State has to go and regulate the field. Like we regulated commerce in order to prevent slavery or to prevent human trafficking, or like we regulated banks in order to fight money laundering. But we still understand that banks are important, commerce is important, and this environment is very important for human development. And therefore we have to defend it. We have to do it together with partners, states, civil society and companies, but we have to be players. We cannot stay and only use the old mechanism that we had to use in the past, like content, communication strategies, etc. We need to go into the road of the matter, algorithmic world. I'll stop here.